Time and again, we have seen multi-billion-dollar game companies attempt to sell us on some variation of the excuse that egregious microtransactions and premium price games are absolutely necessary for them to be able to afford the cost of game development because allegedly games are too costly to make. But anyone who believes this notion has been sold on a blatant lie, and there's no better indicator of this than the most recent development with Activision. So you may recall that Activision kicked off 2019 by relaying the news that they had terminated the employment contract of their then Chief Financial Officer, Spencer Neumann. The reasoning behind the termination was that Spencer Neumann was secretly negotiating with Netflix about new employment while his contract with Activision was still active, a breach that led to the publisher deciding to fire him. Since then, after a successful poaching by Netflix, Spencer Neumann started his tenure as CFO of Netflix, while Activision has been shuffling staff around in response to this unexpected development. In an official statement, alongside detailing how Neumann had violated his legal obligations to the company, it was also relayed that Dennis Durkin, who had originally served as Chief Corporate Officer, would be named the new Chief Financial Officer of the company effective immediately, a promotion that came with some rather generous perks. If you ever wanted to take a tangible look at what corporate avarice looks like, look no further than the incentives Durkin received during this transition. The following information was conveyed by news outlet Bloomberg, which reported in an article published on January 4th, 2019, that as part of his new appointment, Dennis Durkin received $15 million worth of awards. The article detailed that he was granted $11.3 million in restricted stock tied to operating income and earnings per share targets, alongside a $3.75 million sign-on bonus. That's just his welcoming gift, mind you. On top of all that, Dennis Durkin will be receiving a base salary of $900,000 as well as a $1.35 million target bonus. Suffice to say that Spencer Neumann's defection was a rather fortunate occurrence for Dennis Durkin, who is now swimming in money after being handed millions of dollars on a silver platter by Activision like it was nothing. I also have little doubt that Durkin was earning handsomely back when he was Chief Corporate Officer, but as is the way these things work, the rich only get richer, while those lower down in the pyramid are left to bite the dust. What makes all of this particularly nauseating is the fact that it comes in light of Activision's ongoing initiative to cut costs after a financially weak 2018 and what looks to be a lean 2019, with the ones facing the brunt of this initiative being folks like the ground floor employees over at Blizzard. You may recall that, according to recent investigative reports by website Kotaku, Blizzard has been asked to minimize their expenditures and, at the same time, expand their development teams to bolster their output of games. Activision essentially wants to reduce Blizzard's budget and resources while changing their traditional model of taking their time with each new project to factory producing games as fast as possible, which is more in line with the publisher's preference for annual releases. This has led to a number of unprecedented occurrences, like Blizzard trimming employees in departments like customer service, quality assurance, and IT by buying them out with severance packages through a program called Career Crossroads. While this program has been in place at the company for a while, it was only after Activision mandated cost-cutting measures from Blizzard that the studio expanded which departments would be eligible for the program and reduced the years of employment needed to take advantage of it. The goal was essentially to reduce staff in non-essential areas to make way for the hiring of new developers who will contribute to increasing the output of games from Blizzard. Another consequence of Activision's cost-cutting initiative was that Blizzard had to scale down Heroes of the Storm's development team while abruptly canceling the game's planned esports events. Particularly egregious about this was that casters, professional players, and content creators who financially depended on these kinds of esports programs were never warned of the impending cancellation. Blizzard failed to transparently communicate vital information about the future to the people they had partnered with, so when the news finally hit out of nowhere, many were left without a source of income throughout the holidays, and pro players in particular who had been practicing for upcoming Heroes of the Storm events were dismayed to find that months of practice had gone to waste. Many will agree that the most ideal way this situation could have played out was if Blizzard had hosted one more round of esports events before gradually winding things down, rather than flipping the off switch without a heads up. That way, everyone involved with Blizzard's esports programs could have had time to react and make preparations for future ventures. The thing is, though, if it were completely up to Blizzard, I have no doubt that things would have played out differently or that the game might have lived for a while longer. Ultimately, what happened with Heroes of the Storm was a result of Activision's cost-cutting mandate, and what's particularly maddening is that when you look at the monetary awards and salaries executives are earning, it's abundantly clear that money wasn't really a major issue. Simply taking a small fraction of what every executive earns annually and pooling that money together, or hell, even taking a fraction of what Dennis Durkin earned from being welcomed as the new CFO, would have been enough to fund 1 year of Heroes of the Storm esports and then some. The same goes for how Blizzard is being forced to cut costs and output games faster. If all of these filthy rich executives took a pay cut and used that money to help fund operations, studios like Blizzard wouldn't need to have its resources reduced, its budget cut, or its internal culture changed to prioritize quantity over quality. But God forbid these millionaires earn a few millions less each year. God forbid that the billions earned from rampant microtransactions actually go towards something productive like giving developers raises, helping game studios thrive, or hosting programs and events that will bolster a passionate community and loyal fan base rather than straight into the already heavy pockets of apathetic executives. It's just so much easier and more lucrative for Activision executives to send financiers to their subsidiaries to reshape beloved game studios like Blizzard into the publisher's grotesque image, because God forbid the endless flow of money to the top of the pyramid is ever interrupted. That's really what gets me about greedy game companies. When they're hit with a rough patch like 2018 was for Activision, executives will never consider taking a pay cut or have the integrity to make sacrifices of their own to help the company weather out the storm. It's everyone else who end up suffering, the employees, the developers, and the consumers, while the executives continue to prioritize lining their pockets. If you're still with a crowd that insists microtransactions and loot boxes are a necessary evil to afford the development of AAA games, take one gander at this executive happily receiving $15 million for his welcoming party while everything else around him takes a hit for a rough financial year, and then tell me with a straight face that games cost too much to make. Tell me with a straight face that Activision absolutely needed to implement the scummy microtransaction system found in Black Ops 4, which was recently ridiculed after players discovered the company had stooped so low that they're selling a measly red dot for $1. Look me in the eye and tell me that the money made from Black Ops 4 monetization is going towards the betterment of future Activision games rather than into the bank accounts of executives who couldn't give two shits about the artistic merit of video games or the satisfaction of paying customers. You know which company did have the right idea when it came to cutting costs and weathering rough financial time periods? Nintendo. Say what you want about the company, but you've got to admire the late and former Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata, who you may recall took a 50% pay cut when the 3DS didn't perform as well as expected back in 2011, and he did so once again after Wii U's abysmal commercial performance in 2014. Furthermore, on both occasions, alongside Iwata, folks like Shigeru Miyamoto and other members of the board took a pay cut of between 20 and 30%. That's right, during their rough financial periods, Nintendo selflessly made cuts at the top so that the people lower in the pyramid wouldn't have to suffer, and so that the integrity of the company's operations, projects, and products could be maintained. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the mark of true leadership. True leaders strive to serve the people they're responsible for, even if it means making sacrifices, while kings and tyrants disregard their people as disposable underlings. Iwata was a true leader, an exemplar of the ideals and morality that a CEO should uphold, while folks like Activision CEO Bobby Kotick are nothing more than materialistic scumbags who will pass off shady business practices under the guise of financial struggles, while handing out tens of millions of dollars worth of awards to already rich executives on the side. And look, I have nothing against people who achieve financial success, but when the scales are tipped so far off balance that executives who are already set for life are nonchalantly passing around tens of millions of dollars in a circle jerk of avarice while those around them take the fall, something needs to be said. These are one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on the $15 million bonus that Activision's new CFO was awarded for his new appointment in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.